So thank you, Laura, for being on my podcast. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor.
Oh, it's been you've been on my list of guests that I really wanted to have here. We made it work despite the time difference, despite crazy schedules. And I've already introduced you a little bit to my audience, but I would love for you to fill in the gaps and perhaps tell us a little bit more how a registered nurse became psychic and a medium.
Yeah. Um, yes, true. So, in my bio, we list all these things that I've done, and it sounds like a lot, but it was over several years that a lot of that occurred. And as far as a registered nurse to psychic medium, I'm still a registered nurse, so I still work. And I think that that just has been this innate desire in me to want to help people in a positive way, in the most positive way that I can, while also indulging myself in my love for science and anatomy and the human body and all that goes along with that. So I knew for a while that I wanted to do something in healthcare because again, I really was fascinated by the human body. And so my nursing journey happened, and other sort of grounding things happened where I got married and bought a house, had kids, and did all that stuff to where I can sort of establish and still live functionally in this on this earth as a human. And then I started to explore my spirituality more. I want to say that started in 2019. I like to say I've had two awakenings. My first awakening was in my teenage years, prior to nursing school and prior to graduating high school, really, when I had a couple of profound dream visitations. The gosh, now I can't quite remember the order, but they were, I would say, around the same time and like the same season of my life, at least. My paternal grandmother was the first of somebody who was close to me to pass away. And she passed away from cancer. And that's when I decided I wanted to go into healthcare to help other people who went through something similar as her. And she has, since her passing, been has played a very important role in my spiritual journey. The significant dream that I had with her was the night that we had visited her in hospice. Now she was on a ventilator, comatose. It was breathing for her. Her eyes weren't even open. She was unresponsive. She was on a lot of pain meds, and so we didn't converse at all, though I'm sure she knew we were there. And that night I had a dream that she came to me in that dream, and when I saw her, she was glowing and vibrant. She was wearing all white. And we were, I was with my family, that side of the family, in my great grandmother's house, who also was alive at that time. And we were all sitting around, like in her kitchen, family room area. And then through the front door walks my grandma on arm in arm with my grandfather. We called him Poppy. He was also alive at the time as well. And when I saw her, I noticed that besides her being vibrant and wearing this amazing white clothes, like very angelic, behind her was just bright white light. Like I couldn't see what was behind her, but I knew at my great grandmother's house, you open the door, there's a car parked there. It's the bushes and the trees outside. But in my dream, it was just bright white light. And I said, Grandma, you're all better. That was the first thing I said to her because I had just seen her in hospice, you know, comatose. And she said, Yes, I am. And it was the next morning we found out that she had passed and had crossed over. It gives me goosebumps even now when I talk
Yeah.
about it. So that was one of the significant dreams that I had leading up to, I would say, spiritual awakening number one. My second significant dream was I had a dream visitation from Jesus, and he was arm in arm with this man, this grayed out arm I knew was masculine. He came in through this tunnel. I was in a dark space, but the tunnel was like a pastel rainbow, misty, cloudy tunnel that he came through. And I remember thinking, like, gosh, he's kind of short, but I knew it was Jesus because the way he presented was very much like in the Renaissance paintings, what I was sort of brought up with, prior to us being more open minded with what Jesus maybe actually looked like. And when I saw him, I was like, kind of like, well, I knew it was a visitation. Like I knew it was not just a random dream. I knew how real it was. And he came up to me, and the only thing that he asked me was if I would spread his word. And a million thoughts went through my mind, and I answered back, I'll try. And he was fine with that because then he left through the same tunnel on the arm of the same masculine arm, and was gone. And that stuck with me for years, trying to figure out what that meant. Was I going to feel more Christian? Was I going to become an evangelist? Like, to me, spreading his word was that's what I had been taught growing up in a Christian and Jewish household. When I would go to Christian church, they talked about evangelizing and going on missions and things like that. That's what I thought Jesus meant. And I was not comfortable with that at all. And so around that time, I found Sylvia Browne books. And Sylvia Browne is this amazing spiritualist, psychic medium. She has since passed as well, but she wrote lots of books. She was published through Hay House. And I would go to Borders, which is like a local bookstore, well, local for the US, to, buy her books because there was no internet at the time. And so I read up on her books, and everything that she wrote about, I was like, I couldn't get enough. I just was hungry for more information about the other side, about spirit guides. That was the first I learned about spirit guides, angels, da da da. I mean, it was amazing. She was actually able to explain what the other side was like, and it resonated with me, which made me more confused about the Jesus dream, but that's okay. And so part of what she taught was, everybody has a spirit guide. It was the first time I ever heard about spirit guides, and I was intrigued. And but also at the same time, I'm like, I don't want him to, I don't want my spirit guide, him or her, to just like show up in my room. I don't want to be scared like that, but I do want to know, like, if I have a spirit guide, who they are, what they are. And so she had said in one of her books, to meet your spirit guide, ask them to visit you in a dream. And so I did that. So I guess I had a third significant dream around my awakening, because a couple weeks later, I did have a dream about my spirit guide. And how did I know that? Well, there was this younger man, looked like in his 20s, and it again in this dark space, and he's standing there like in a tunic, from ancient times, um, and I just knew to ask him if he was my spirit guide. And he said yes. And I just asked him the next question that, as a human, I feel like is important for us to know, not necessary, but important for us to know. And so I asked him for his name, and he told me his name is Jason. And then that was it. Like, the dream was just as quick and succinct as it was with Jesus. Like, that was it. And so that's when I met Jason, my spirit guide, who I'm still very close with and work with today. And so that was really what started spiritual awakening number one for me, was really picking up Sylvia Browne books and learning about spirituality for the first time. And so then I did the nursing thing. I did the college thing. I did the family, the house. I did that whole thing. And then in 2019, I went to visit a psychic for the first time. And then this was the beginning of spiritual awakening number two. And the psychic told me to start meditating. And I had not meditated before that, because to me, there were a couple things with meditation that I was either scared of or didn't resonate with. And I thought meditation was for gurus or yogis, people who sat on mountaintops in lotus position for hours or even days on end. And I'm like, that is not, I'm too busy for that. And then I also thought, well, I thought meditation was only for like Buddhists or Hindus. Like, I didn't think it was for me. And then I also was like, well, I know with meditation, you can get in this really deep state. What does your soul leave your body? And then is your body vulnerable to possession? Like all these thoughts would keep me from meditating. So the psychic medium, she was so great. And there were so many things that she said that were spot on already, that when she told me that she wanted me to start meditating and that I was loved and protected, I trusted it. And I'm so glad I did, because what that did was is it led me down this path of honing in on my intuition, which I learned through the help of my guide, Jason, that my intuition was how he communicated with me. And it led me to psychic mediumship. It led me to energy healing. It led me to being guests on summits and sharing my story and my journey. It led me to writing a book and led me to podcasts, etc. Like it led me to all these things because I started to say yes to what intuitively felt good, because I learned what that felt like. So that was the long answer to your question of registered nurse and psychic medium. I still work as a registered nurse, and I still am very much spiritual and in that space of working with my guides daily, because I feel like it permeates every aspect of my life, whether it's nursing, whether it's family, whether it's deciding, am I, intuitively, am I really hungry, or do I just want to taste something that tastes good? And, so it's, it permeates every aspect of my life.
Wow, what an incredible journey. I love listening to that, Maura, especially because I feel a lot of the parts that you've shared will resonate with a lot of us, because we have dreams and we don't often think that's something, like Jesus came to me big, like what is that? Probably, I've watched too many
Yeah.
movies or something, right? But I love that led you, that planted the seed to kind of get you to explore and follow that thread. um and I want to come back in a minute to your guy Jason.
Yeah.
um but let me just ask you this for a moment. So you're still working as a nurse, because it always fascinates me when a very left brain person, which I guess being a nurse and being into science you have to be, can still have this beautiful intuitive side to them, and both kind of can coexist and even complement each other, because you can explain things from a scientific point of view as well as the intuitive spiritual. What is your work in a spiritual arena for our listeners? If you can sort of tell us, like, what do you do?
Yeah. So, as far as the stuff that I do outside of my 9 to 5, is I do readings for people. I love to connect with their guides and do that sort of psychic mediumship readings, energy healing, which I love because I feel like it complements my nursing and my spirituality together, which I feel like just it really resonates with me. And I love to teach and I love to educate. So I do that with my nursing job now. And I have my master's of science degree in nursing education. So I can utilize the tools that I learned in grad school to help educate in all aspects, including spirituality. And so I have created my podcast, which I love having guests come on and share their story. I know, Kasia, we're going to have you on there too, and to share their story, to educate myself and to educate my listeners. I come on other people's platforms to do the same because I love to educate. Wrote a book to help those who are on their own spiritual journeys by sharing some stories of vulnerability myself, but also to provide some tools for those who are on their own spiritual journey as well. So for me, it's being able to continue to educate and share with people the love and the support that they have on the other side. And I'm really, really taken by guides because I love that they can empathize with us in this human journey. I love angels and I love ascended masters. I love all of the other entities that are on our teams as well. I really do. But there's something about guides that just really speak to me. And perhaps it's because it feels like a sibling relationship or even a parental relationship, like whatever it is that we need at the time. I feel like they can provide. And like I said, they can empathize. So they've lived lives on earth. So they know what it is that we're going through. And sometimes if we want to be pissed, like they understand why we're pissed, or if we want to be happy, they're there to celebrate with us because they have been through that too. I feel like that's really important to understand our highs and to understand our lows. um with whatever human they're guiding and they're connected to. So I think that that's why I've been really feel strongly of working with spirit guides as well.
I think this is why I was so drawn to you and your work, Laura, because spirit guides resonate with me so deeply as well. And from the beginning, and actually, when I started going into this work, looking back at my childhood, I was like, oh, so that's who I was talking to. That's who I was, like I
Oh, I
started
love that.
connecting the dots. Um, so you have mentioned so many things that you are doing and have done, written books, you teach, you do sessions, readings, you speak on platforms, you have your own podcast, which by the way is called
A guided life.
A Guided Life. We'll link everything up. But you have done so much, and then you still have your day job. And I have a question for you around, because sometimes we're doing something that isn't necessarily spiritual, right? Our day job. But then we're also like awakening to this spiritual self with these gifts. And then all of a sudden we find ourselves a little bit lost and we go like, okay, so who am I then? Am I a nurse, or am I a medium? Am I a psychic? Like, how does it all blend in? Have you ever had this existential crisis? And then, like, if so, how did you navigate through it? How did you label yourself, or didn't you label yourself?
Oh, that's a really good question. So, when I started having spiritual awakening number two, I was all in. I was hungry like I was with spiritual awakening number one. But at that time in 2019, 2020, we have, Facebook, we have social media, we have the internet, we have YouTube. So, there are a lot more resources at my fingertips. So, I was, meditating every day and, channel writing and practicing my mediumship and like offering free readings to family and friends who were willing to sit with me virtually because of course then the pandemic hit. But I was just I was hungry for more, and there was a time when I was thinking like, do I really want to be a nurse? This feels so good. I just want to be in between spirit world and physical world all the time. And for me, nursing was all all physical world for me. I did have a little bit of, what do I do, or how do I do it, or am I supposed to keep doing this, am I supposed to do this? And you know what was even more confusing was during that time in 2021, I was working part-time in my current job in the clinic, and I loved the balance of working 2 to 3 days a week, and then having the other days where I could do what I needed to get done at home for the family, but also for myself. And so for me, I thought that if anything was going to change, it was going to be maybe more in the spiritual sense and less in the nursing sense. But then, so I was really confused when I knew that my guides were leading me to take on the part time or the full time job that I have now in nursing. And and I knew that I was being led that way because of how seamless the transition was. I was kind of interested in it, but I wasn't sure. I was apprehensive, but it sounded really cool. It was right up my alley. I was finishing up my master's degree in nursing education. This role is heavy in educating nurses. Not every nurse who gets their master's in nursing education gets to teach and still make a decent income outside of a college atmosphere. So I knew that, like, in my position that I have now, I'm the only one in all of Southern California to have that position for my organization. So I know how lucky I am to have been given that opportunity. I interviewed, I did all that stuff. It was such a seamless process, that, the person who had the role before me was like, you would be great at this job, you should apply. I applied, I got an interview, I got the job. It was just like, and I was still deciding if I wanted this or not, but I went through the motions because I was like, well, I have to at least try. Then I'll always have the option of saying no if I'm like absolutely not. But it was almost like against my will. I just felt like the words, yes, I accept. Like it came out. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to trust what's happening here. And so for me, I think that could have looked very different if I didn't have a strong relationship with my intuition and my guides. Like that was really important in the process of trust, because when our trust is being tested, it's usually tested most in the scariest situations, like a big move or a job change or taking a leap of faith into something. It's never like, oh, like I'm going to try I don't know, this different kind of coffee drink. It's never like that, right? It's always like these big things that we really do need to put our trust into. And for me, it was not lost on me how seamless. I keep going like this because it felt like so seamless. Everything worked together. And that's how I knew that, okay, I'm meant to do this. I just have to trust it, that it's right, and just see where it goes. And it has been a blessing. I have been able to do what I love as far as the nursing aspect goes. And even though I am full time, I am balancing it with other aspects of my life, and I work from home. There's just so many amazing things that I can see now. Oh, I get it. Now I know why that happened. Uh, but not to say it wasn't scary to begin with. So, you know, that's I think that if I hadn't have started that meditative practice, if I hadn't started that journey of honing in my intuition, building a communicative relationship with members of my soul team, because I also know my guardian angel is very much present. My past loved ones are there. Jesus, obviously, is there for me as well, too, among many others that I meet along the way and that come and go. So I was able to get past that, that need to only identify as one or the other. No, I'm just a nurse, or no, I'm just a psychic medium, or whatever. I'm all of it. And I can see the larger picture of why what I practice on my own time with my spirituality, my meditative practice, honing my intuition, how that supports me in my role as a nurse and in other aspects of my life as well. So it has become more of a bigger picture for me versus I have to do one or the other. But I'm also very much open to, if I need a break from one, or if something doesn't resonate anymore, then it doesn't mean that my whole life has to stop. That just means that that aspect of it may stop, or I'll step away from, but the other things will continue, because that's just life. We have so many things going on at once. So
The
I'm
ebb and
learning to
flow.
not, yeah, I'm learning to not just identify with one, or wanting to just identify with one. I can see how all the things that I do work together and are meant to be that way, because I continue to follow my intuition and the guidance that I get from the other side.
Oh, I loved how you explained this, and especially how you've highlighted for us the seeing the bigger picture, because I feel we have been as humans so conditioned from birth to label ourselves, to like fit into a category, Um, when you are a baby, you either are an early walker or you're not an early walker, you're an early talker or you're not an early talker,
You're
and
a
then
boy or
in
girl.
kindergarten,
Yeah.
yeah, and then you're a good or bad child, right? Then as
So
soon as
true.
you hit in school, right, they want you to like, well, who do you want to be when you grow up? We've got to get specific. We've got to put you onto the right path, doing the right subjects. And you have to, like, already in grade 9 here, start to think about these things, right? So it's like every
Mhm.
step of the way. And even, like, I'm very familiar with the um entrepreneurial and business world as well. And even there, you have to niche down. You have to know who you're talking to. You have to label yourself, I am here for. And so we get this so ingrained in us that I feel like that becomes our focus. But that is a very minuscule way of looking at life, because we are, of course, multisensory beings. We are all of it. And I love how you said you can see the bigger picture of how it all supports each other, how it flows, and that it's okay that sometimes this part will, fade away a little bit, maybe become a little bit weaker. And so you give more focus to this, and perhaps, after a while, it becomes stronger again, or it comes back in a different way. Um, and I hope that as my listeners are listening to this, that will be one of the takeaways for them, that you don't have to label yourself, like, it doesn't matter what you do. Because I always say we're all psychic, we all have this ability, but not everyone is here to be a psychic or a tarot reader or an energy healer, right? You could be
Yeah.
a teacher, you could be a nurse, and still utilize these beautiful gifts that you have to support the work that you do. And you don't have to label yourself. And if you want to do psychic work after hours, fantastic, right? So I love that you have brought this into this episode for us and shared how you mash it all together. And it's all part of you. It's all that makes up Laura, right? In
Yeah.
this lifetime and
That's
more. Who
right.
knows what else is going to come?
Yep.
I love that, Laura. And of course, as a spirit guide teacher and a teacher of intuition as well, a question begs to be asked here. Tell us more maybe about our guides, because I I know that everyone experiences guides, or who the benevolent beings that they talk to, in a different way. Some think, no, there's only one, it's the higher self, or there's only God. Some only talk to angels. Some believe in spirit guides, like you and I. But I would love to hear from your perspective, your experience. Like, if you can tell us a little bit more about, like, who our guides are, and yeah, lead us into this sort of topic a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I've learned a lot about guides in the readings that I've done for people and from my own experience as well. And books and things that I've read as well. And I find that, as I had mentioned before, the guides have lived lives on earth, so they are able to empathize with us. Now, guides can be human like beings. They can come to you like in an animal form. They can come in like a mystical creature form, dragon, unicorn. Some people also view those as separate types of guides as well. What I've learned with the spirit world is that nothing's wrong. Nothing's 100% one way or the other, except the basics, like it's all about love. So what resonates for one person doesn't mean, and doesn't resonate for another, it doesn't mean that's wrong. It's just what it is for them, and that's completely fine. But from what I've learned is that, in the guides that I that I mostly work with are ones that appear in more of like a human figure. um I say this because when I've done psychic medium readings for people where I see their guides are there, but then I'll have like a goddess there, or I'll have extraterrestrial there as well. So again, all different kinds. Um, but as far as spirit guides and our knowledge of them, um, I've done readings where a guide has told the sitter, the person that I'm reading for, their guide through me, uh, told them that they have actually lived lives together. And I've been told by guides that they will, with their person, switch who's the spirit guide in one life and who lives the life on earth. Like it actually switches. The spirit guide isn't always a spirit guide and vice versa. Um, yes, spirit guide can be somebody who in one life was like a family member, but not necessarily. I have also heard that spirit guides can be living a physical life simultaneously as being a spirit guide to the human that they're working with. So your spirit guide, who you connect with through meditation, intuition, etc., may also be living a physical life somewhere on earth at the same time. I mean, it's just some of it's like mind blowing. That's why I say we never put limits on spirit because
Mm.
really anything is possible. But the basic understanding of why we even have guides is so that we have somebody who has that spiritual perspective, that larger picture perspective on the other side that can help us, guide us, empathize with us, support us, and love us unconditionally while we go through this really hard place called Earth. And so they are there to do all those things for us. But the important thing that I have learned with some guides is that you do have to ask. I have seen it where people have had contracts with their guides. I say contracts, it could have been more like a discussion before they incarnated. I mean, I feel like, and what I'm being shown right now, it's that everybody's a little bit different. Some people like the more formalized sit down, let's come up with a plan. Some people are more like, yeah, maybe you could do this, more fly by the seat of their pants, just like they are in human life. It's very similar. So there's all different kinds. And so it just depends on you as a person. And I would beg to say that how you are now as a person, you could probably imagine how you would have sat with your guide and discussed how this life was going to go. I've had it where guides where a person would have told their guides before coming to this life, don't intervene until I do this. Don't intervene until I say this. I need to try this on my own. I need to figure this out. And so it's almost like they put those safeties in place in case they don't know to ask for the help because we get like an amnesia when we come here. We
Mm.
have these awakenings for a reason because we are asleep essentially. We don't remember until we have these awakenings. Now, that's again most people. I've interviewed many people and I can start to see it now in my own self where maybe we came in awake. We just didn't really have words for it. So anyway, that's a whole another thing. But yes, guides are fantastic like that. You know, you can have more than one. Guides come and go for different reasons. You may have a main guide or two or three that kind of just sticks with you through your whole life and perhaps from the moment that you sparked. There are guides that will stick with you for your whole lifetime that you're currently having, but they may not come for another lifetime. So there's sort of like a main guide for this life, but you still have that main guide or two or however many that has been with you from the beginning since the time you sparked, whether you guys sparked together or you sparked first. Again, there's no limits or rules really to it. But and then we've got guides that come and go, whether it's you have a new business venture, you'll have a guide for that. Whether it's you're about to go through an emotional high or low, you'll have a guide for that. Guides can come in to help you I don't know, develop your mediumship. And it could be more of like an ascended master, but they work very similarly to a guide. So it's just, gosh, it's just, there's so many different things that come along with a guide. It's almost easier to just like do a reading for somebody and tell them what their guide is like, or
Specifically for
answer
them.
somebody's, yeah, like to almost narrow it down that way versus try to give because there's just so many. It could be this, it could be that, where it's like it could be very gray. Whereas maybe some people are like, well, that doesn't really help, but it helps to maybe know if they wanted to know for themselves more. But anyway, yeah, so
Well,
guides are
it
great.
does, I think, Laura, because we're so again used to being very much like black and white, and there has to be rules. And the spirit world, I feel, I always say this. To me, it's like all of us were tapping, whether it's the Akashic records, whether it's to whatever the spirit world, talking to angels, talking to God. It's like we are standing here witnessing a car accident, and then we get interviewed, and everyone is going to give a slightly different version of what happened based on their filters, right? So you might have someone, you know, um, who witnessed that car accident, who, it's a woman who just, her husband cheated and she hates men in this current moment. So she will say, oh, I saw the guy, it's his fault, right? And then there might be a guy who believes that women are sucky drivers. And like, oh no, it was the woman, because women shouldn't be driving. So it's like kind of
Sure.
we're experiencing, I feel like, the spirit world in through our filters, but also what, because I feel like they know how our minds work, how our brains work, how, they know how much to feed us, at once. Sometimes we get spoon fed little bits of information because they know if I give you too
Yeah.
much, you'll spook away, right? And you mentioned
Yeah.
that you were scared, you didn't want
Yeah.
to see your spirit with your physical eyes because that would be scary. That was me. I remember when my mom passed away, and this was before I was, let's say, this state of awakened. And I said to her, please don't come. Please don't let me see you because that's going to freak me out. Like, as if it's that easy to actually see spirit. I've learned it's not that easy. But I was like, I don't want to see. I could feel her presence and that made it easier, but I didn't want to see her. And then I learned by connecting that actually this fear that I had ever since I was little of being in the dark because I could feel something. That actually was holding me back from really experiencing spirits. I had to heal that, and that's a whole
Sure.
story. But, anyways, I just want to say this is so. I love that you are experiencing the spirit world and therefore guides in a very similar way to me. Because for me, this is like, oh yay. I'm on the right
Yeah.
track, right? Like we like
Yeah.
when we get validations like this because it's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not making
Yep.
this up. It is like that. Someone else feels it like that too. So
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Now, okay, let's talk a little bit about your guide, Jason. And
Oh,
so
yes.
he came to you in your dream. We're going back to that time. And how, like, what happened then? Like, how did, because you said he stuck around and you were, working with him. But
Mm,
what does that mean, working with him? Like, what did that look
mm.
like for you?
That's a really good question. For me, it was more of an intuitive knowing that it was him because I wanted to know who's working with me right now. That's I wanted to know. And so for me, I it's almost like I it's like when you're driving in the car, you're in the shower and you start to have a thought and it kind of leads to the stream of consciousness. And then it's like an aha moment where something's like, oh, that's why that's like that. So for me, it was kind of like, huh, when I started having spiritual awakening number two, I started realizing that I was being intuitively guided, that my guides and other entities from my soul team were communicating with me through my mind. I don't know how else to say it. But this was following meditation because meditation taught me how to focus my thoughts so that my mind wasn't cluttered with too many things. And so that meditative practice of, focusing on your breathing and trying to, yes, the thoughts will come, but just kind of letting them go. I didn't realize that what that was doing was sort of paving the way and sort of like cleaning out the communication pipes between this world and the other side for me, because psychic mediumship was my part of my path. So that needed to be cleaned out, and so I went back to Jason because, like I said, I had the dream. I met him this was definitely my teenage years. I met him, and then I knew about him, but I kind of just put the spirituality stuff on the back burner for many, many years. And then 2019 came around. And now I'm nearly, about 20 plus years later, starting to have spiritual awakening number two. And I remember Jason. I never forgot him, but I didn't really have a I didn't build a relationship with him until I started to explore spirituality again. And he was familiar because I met him before. And so I naturally turned to him to help me on my journey. I naturally turned to him when I was scared to try something new, but I made sure he was there with me. And I started to build that trusting relationship with him that, okay, if I'm going to test out mediumship with people who've passed, not just with guides and entities, loving entities, but like with human spirits. I mean, guides are human spirits in a form, in a way too, but like people who have passed, I'm like, okay, what if I start seeing dead people? Like, what if I start seeing ghosts? I'm a scaredy cat, so I was scared. But I started to rely on Jason more and doing the work with him, and I still do. And so for me, building that relationship, it was very intuitive. But like I said, I started to hone that intuitive muscle to know that, okay, this is him, or to know what his sign is when I know he's around, because meditation helped me to do that. And so I've learned that, what sensation that I do get physical sensation when I know that he's around, whether it's just letting me know he's there or when he is trying to tell me something. Whenever I sit in my power before I do a reading for somebody, I always feel him and I always get it's called a calling card. That's how I was taught by my mentor. I always get his calling card and I feel like a slight pressure, like as if something were touching the top of my forehead. And I know it's him because his hair is his significant. I remember his hair in my dream. I don't know if you can see a little side note. That's him right there in the picture. Here, let me grab it really quick.
Wow.
Okay. I had an intuitive artist draw him for me based on a description that I gave him because when I first saw him in my dream, he reminded me, I don't know if you remember this movie, The Indian in the Cupboard. There was a little boy actor in this movie called The Indian in the Cupboard. And when I saw the 20-year-old version of my guide, I was like, oh gosh, he looks a lot like that kid. And so I told the intuitive artist. And so he painted Jason for me.
Oh,
So this is what he looks like. And his hair was very important. Like his hair was always wavy and like,
very
golden
angelic.
brown. Yeah, right. Very, like, very handsome, great sense of humor. Like it's like someone you want to date. Okay. But anyway,
Describing a profile.
I know. Hey. So I know
Oh,
it's so
it's
funny.
beautiful. How did you
Thank
feel when
you.
you received this artwork? Did it resonate deeply
Well,
or?
yeah. I mean, I was like, oh, see, yeah, there he is. Like he
Mm,
definitely captured his essence. And it was great. This is a little side note, but what was also really validating was I have a dear friend. She was also a guest on my podcast, and she does shamanic journeying, and she calls it the lower realms, like the animal guide realms. And
mm,
so when she did one for me, and this usually people don't show up in her journeys. But a gentleman showed up when she was doing mine, and great sense of humor. She explained what he looked like, and I said, "Is this who you saw?" And she said, "Yes." I was like,
oh my
"Oh my
God.
god, yeah, that's Jason." And it was so validating because she saw him and described him the same way
And
that
it matched. This
that
is what I
yeah.
mean. Validation is so
I
cool when you
know.
get it
Oh,
in this arena.
yes, it's so
Ah,
important because the work that we do is so intuitive. It's so
yeah.
not tangible that when we can get something that our physical bodies like to receive, it's just so exciting.
Yeah.
So
It's
that's
that
Jason.
resonance.
Yeah. So that's Jason. And so intuition really has helped me to learn when I'm working with him or when I'm working with another guide or another entity, that I just was able to strengthen through meditation.
That is so cool. So, Laura, what about my listeners who might be listening to this now, wondering about their own guides, perhaps they've been shown or told that they have someone, maybe they know who it is, maybe they've met them. But what would you say is a good way to start working with them? Like, if
Oh,
you can
I
share
love
a
it.
couple of tips that could get them,
Yes,
going.
yes. I have a couple of tips. I do want to share that there are a lot of guides who are really excited right now because I feel like there's going to be a lot of connecting of your
Yeah,
listeners with their guides. So I sense a lot of excitement right
beautiful.
now. So meditation, number one, for it worked really well for me. And I do want to say that meditation, what's so great about it is that it doesn't just have to be sitting in silence, focusing on breathing. That worked really well for me. Guided meditations worked really well for me. And I almost feel like I know not everyone can do it, but I do feel like it's a really quick way to get there, to hone in on intuition because you really are working to quiet the mind. Nothing's distracting you. But I will say that there are other forms of meditation:
Mm.
walking, dancing, gardening, crafting, whatever zones you out. Some people, it's like working on an Excel spreadsheet, whatever,
Yeah, anything
whatever.
that's meditative. I
Yeah.
find that with knitting and crocheting actually.
Perfect. Exactly. So whatever is meditative also allows you to zone out something you don't have to really think about,
Mm.
that you just can like have these aha moments and these thoughts, these streams of consciousness or whatever you want to call it, in the shower or driving. So there's all different ways to get to that meditative state, but I will say that meditation's great. I like guided meditations because I like being given a task, and some instructions to remind me, okay, focus on the breathing. So I use guided meditations pretty much all the time. I find that I can sit longer with a guided meditation than just in silence, or even with some music. I can probably go a little bit longer. I love music. But anyway, so that I would say worked well for me. So I would recommend that to anybody. And another good one, which may come easier for some people, or it may not come until after they've started meditating. Again, everybody's different. But what also really worked, especially when it comes to starting a relationship, like a communicative relationship with your guides or any entity on your team, even past loved ones, whatever it is that you want or whoever you want, it is channel writing or download writing. And what that looks like is, let me go back a little bit too. It could also be a channel drawing for people as well. And what that looks like is, you get into kind of like a meditative state, but it's a lot less involved in that. Maybe you take a few deep breaths and you just kind of relax your body a little bit. And then maybe you start with a question for your guide. Open ended's better, but you can, if you want to start easy, could do a close ended, like a yes or no. And you just ask your guide a question. I don't know, what's your name? For some people, what's your name? And when you draw the answer, you just go whatever the first thing that pops in your head. Don't judge it. You can judge it later, but write it down, the first thing that pops in your head. And as you get more comfortable with this, you can write sentences and paragraphs and pages and, go longer. You just write. And what's great about writing is you can always go back and analyze it and judge it later, because we're humans. We like to do that. But don't do it while you're writing, because you'll kind of break that connection. You'll start to doubt. And it's such a fine line between just trusting and going with the first thing versus you starting to take over and starting to doubt. And it kind of severs that. It makes it harder. It can make it harder. So I suggest just the word, whatever word pops into your head, whether you hear it, whether you see it, whether you feel it or sense it, whatever, you just write it down. And I like that because you can go back to it later. Type, I like to use the laptop when I do that because I can type a lot faster than I can write. And you'll find that sometimes these words just come in so quickly that it can be hard to read, go back and read
Mm.
your
Keep up
handwriting,
the pace.
and then you're like, well, what's the point of that? I can't even read it. Yeah, exactly. So I type faster. So I like to use a laptop, but that also helped me to strengthen my intuition while communicating and learning and asking questions about for me, it was my guides, but it could be any past loved one. It could be angels. Like any entity on the other side has the ability to communicate with you, and they want to, and they do, and they love doing it. It's just a matter of us, not blocking ourselves. And, a lot of teachers, spiritual guides, psychic mediums will say that what you're doing there is you're raising your vibration. So, if you speak more in terms of energy and vibration, getting into that space allows you to raise your vibration, because our guides and our entities and are the loving entities on the other side. They're in a space that's of higher vibration. So it just allows us to meet and to connect and make that connection and start that communication.
I love that. That's incredible. Yes. And meditation, I mean, I'm going to second this. Meditation is incredible. And I think I want to just add, for those of you listening who, like me, struggle with guided meditations, because I feel like it actually, for me, it like I feel like I just want to drift off and create these visuals instead of being in a meditate, which you are. But anyway, my mind kind of works funny when it's a guided meditation. But what I was doing actually to help me was I was listening to light language. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, because light language is kind of like, I mean, it's not a guided meditation, but it's someone talking to you, and except they're using, sounds and vibrations and, channeling this light language from higher beings, which carries a frequency in itself. But when I close my eyes, that creates a meditative state for me very quickly. But
Ooh.
Laura has certainly, you've got great tips, especially like doing everyday things, right? That are meditated because you know them, like washing dishes or folding the washing or something, like that can be meditative in itself. And raises your vibration, because that's, I guess, important, because it makes it easier to connect with them. They lower their vibration, we raise ours. So I really, really love that. Now, Laura, we are sort of now getting to this part of almost being done, unfortunately. But is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wished I'd asked?
I wouldn't no, I think that I feel pretty complete, but I do want to sort of round out the story about the dream that I had with Jesus and what
Yes.
he meant about spreading his word, because it took me many years to really figure out what he meant by that. And when I started channel writing, I said, well, why not channel Jesus? I mean, he's an entity on the other side. Why not? And so I did. And he came through. And what he told me was that the word that I'm to spread is the word of love. And I said, that I can do, because I feel like that I can resonate with. That I feel like is the foundation for all of this. And so that's what he meant. It wasn't to evangelize in the sense that, I'm not trying to spread a religion or anything like that, but just to remind people that really, love is really important, whether that's through joy or whether that's, really feeling, just showing some kindness to a stranger, all different ways that one can express love. It doesn't have to be like the way we feel for our partner or our children. It could be different from that, and that's okay too. So I wanted to share that to round out that story.
I think that's perfect. That was perfect that you've mentioned this, because that was actually on my mind to come back and ask you,
Oh,
because so many of us would feel like, oh, this is either such a huge mission. Where do I go? What do I do? Can you be more specific? Do I need to
yeah,
become religious? Do I need to be a priest now? Like, where do I go? Right? And you
yeah,
you channeled this word, and you kind of, just by being you and doing, that bigger picture, of
yeah,
you version, you are spreading love, whether it's in your day job, whether it's by doing readings, whether it's coming onto a podcast and sharing and sprinkling love for everyone,
yeah.
just helping us to connect the guides. You are definitely doing this, and it is so incredibly amazing of you that you are not sucked into the details of like, but how, the analytical mind likes to do that, but you just feel into it. What does that look like? What does it feel like? What's the bigger picture of it? And this is why you're here, and this is why we got to, bathe in your energy today and share in your wisdom. And that was so incredible. Now, we have two more things to do because we want to know where we can find you. And also, I would love for you to share something very special that my listeners know. I like to ask my guests to share something with us. Give us a teaser, a taster, a message, and you have something very special. So
Me
take the
too.
stage and tell us also where to find you, please.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm on many different platforms. Well, I say that it's mostly Facebook and Instagram as far as my socials. So I can be found at either Guided West 111 or a Guided Life podcast. And that would be for Facebook as well and Instagram. I am on TikTok as Guided West. And I do have a YouTube, a Guided Life podcast by Laura West. And what else? Oh, and then my podcast, A Guided Life, is on all pretty much not all, but many of the major platforms, Apple, Spotify, etc. And my book is available. It's called Guided. It's like a guided theme. Have you noticed? It's called
Love it.
Guided. I know. It's what I was told to do. So, and it's on Amazon, so that's available there
How
as
did you
well.
squeeze writing a book amongst all the other things? It just feels like such a
I
huge
know.
task.
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I can see, like, if it weren't me, I would wonder the same thing. And all I can say is that if it's spirit led, spirit driven, then I know that I can do it because they give me the motivation and the energy to do it. Um, to write a book, it took me about a year and a half to write the book, which, in some cases, maybe that's considered fast, but that's a long time to keep with something for me, at least. And so,
And you have
the only
little
way I was
babies
able
as well,
to,
so.
I've got children, yes, and a husband, and yeah, yep, I know I do have a lot, but at the same time, like if it brings me joy and it makes me happy, I'm excited to do it and I find the time to do it. The biggest lessons that I've been learning is balance, not only to make sure I have enough to give of myself for my work and my family, but for myself as well, and finding that balance and those boundaries. So still working on it, but yeah, if it weren't for spirit, that's where my motivation comes from.
And
So
you're also
yeah.
on TV presenter. We didn't even dive into
Yeah.
this. Please just
Well,
share this with us before you.
I know. Well, okay. So, former, yes, I don't have the show anymore. I think it's still available on the Everyday Women TV network. It's like a smart channel like Netflix or Hulu that you can upload on your smart TV. And on there, I have my show, Life from the Other Side, where I talk to people who either had a near death experience and visited the other side, or mediums who work closely with the other side and share their experiences that they have as well. So I think there are about 6 episodes, 5 or 6 episodes up on there. Yeah. So that was a
Incredible.
lot of fun too.
What a Wonder
Yeah.
Woman. I'm so
Uh,
delighted you were here. All right, let's
well,
dive
thank
into
you.
your cards.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Okay. So the message I'm going to share is from my it's called From Your Spirit Guides deck. I know it's a little bit hard to
Yes. Oh,
see.
the beautiful. Look at that. Is that a feather?
It's feathers, yeah. I
Oh,
know,
it's
I thought that was
beautiful.
fun. So, yeah, so I made this deck because so many people that I read for, if I go on and I do like Facebook Lives or Instagram Lives, and I do readings on there, everybody wants to know, does my guide have a message for me? And so what I did was I created a deck where you can, you breathe into it and your guide will let you pick the card that they want you to pick. And so there's your message. So it's just a more
Love it.
tangible way for you to receive a message from your guide. So
They're playing
that's what
Pictionary
this
with you.
is. Yeah. Yeah. Except this is just more like words and sayings on there. So a little bit more straightforward. But anyway, here's the message that that the guides have for us today. And it's just love is all you need, which is funny because it's like,
So
the mission,
perfect.
spread the word of love. So sorry it's
Yeah.
backwards, but
Oh, it's so bad. No, it's love is all you need. You can
love is
read
all
it
you
there. That
need.
is so
Yeah,
perfect, Laura. Thank you so much. So
I
we
know.
can purchase your cards.
Yeah, it's on the Make Playing Cards website. My link tree has all the links to
And
everything.
we will link it all up
Yeah.
so that you can find Laura. Oh my goodness. I have no doubt that you will be inundated with so many people wanting to know about
Oh,
their guides and tuition and the cards and the book
oh, of course. Yes.
and even how you balance it all. So thank you so, so much for coming here onto this podcast, Sprinkling Love, letting us bathe in your energy, in your wisdom, and being so honest about sharing things with us, because I feel like when we share these moments that, we often think, yeah, they're part of us. I don't know if anyone's interested in, or if they're too woo woo. They actually help us, right? They help those
Yeah.
who are just awakening, who are going through similar things, who are wondering, am I losing my marbles or is this normal? So I am so grateful to you, Laura. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here. And thank you to you, beautiful light beams. And I will be with you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.